So now I'm going to teach you how to make sugar sheet. Like, it's a very sparkly decorating technique that could be used on tiered cakes or sometimes even on taller cakes or single tier cakes, but I like to use it as one of the technique in one of the tiers in a wedding cake as well. I kept teaching it in the past physical classes here, and I thought it was like really very interesting and I wanted to show you guys. And so this time we are going to make sugar sheet decorating technique, and I want you guys to make it with me as part of Cakes Unplugged with Subhashini Ramsey. Okay, so what I have here is just very minimal tools and materials, and even the ingredients is like just two stuffs that I have with me, which is the sugar. So this sugar is like the regular granulated white sugar that we use for coffee and stuffs like that for home. Okay, so we just need that much of granules. We don't have to go anything smaller than that. Okay, and even if you have like bigger chunks, it is fine, but then have fine granulated white sugar. And the second ingredient that we need is liquid glucose that I have here. You can see liquid glucose if you have already known about it. It's like a very dense liquid, but we could microwave it to make it thin, so it just combines with the rest of the ingredients that we will be using. And so so this is like the binding agent that is going to keep the sugar together. Okay, and now this we will microwave before using it on the sugar. So right now this sugar is there, and we need the sugar sheet in certain color that will go with a cake. Okay, so it could be like a contrasting color to the cake that we are using, or could be the same color as the cake as well. So what I have here is a turquoise color and it's gel color. A little bit of liquid color is also okay. So maybe you need some raw shades that is maybe specifically there with maybe your airbrush colors or stuff like that. Then you could add like a drop or two. We are not maybe looking at like the pitch dark color, and even if in case you need like the pitch red or the royal blue or the black, then you might have to add as much color into the sugar as you want to get the shade of the sugar icing sheet that you want to get. Okay, so this I'm just going to add in 5 maybe 6 drops. Okay, and then see, if you don't want to mess up your hands getting stained, you could use gloves, or you could drop the entire sugar in a big Ziploc bag and add the gel food coloring into the Ziploc bag and then just shake up the bag so the color just distributes all over all the more. Now after even the color gets mixed up, when we are going to microwave the liquid glucose and then add it in there, we might have to put in your finger. So if you don't want the stickiness, then you could just have a gloves. Okay, so now I am just going to mix it up. You want the sugar, all of the sugar, to get the color. So just make sure the sugar is all colored. And here, if in case you just want your sugar to take up a little different shade, then go ahead and then you can add extra at this point of time as well. Like maybe you just think it needs a drop of green or maybe some yellow to get the exact shade that you want. Just stay back in here and then get the color, because this will be the color of your sugar sheet at the end that you want to put it on your cake. So here what color you have with the sugar alone is very important. So spend some time and make sure the gel food coloring is all completely incorporated and the sugar has caught up with all the color that you want to add. Okay, so now I have the colored sugar. Okay, and now I'm just going to get the liquid glucose microwaved, and I'll get back when I have it flowy, so I can just add it into the sugar and mix it up and show it to you. So I have microwaved the liquid glucose. You don't want it like really very runny. It just has to be thick and flowy. Okay. So in this stage I'm just going to drop this into the colored sugar. Okay, and then I'm just going to cover it up and then use my fingers to just have the liquid glucose combined with all the sugar. You want the liquid glucose to coat the sugar thoroughly. So it's going to be sticky mess in your hands, like I said. Use hand gloves, but I just want to actually feel if the entire sugar is being thoroughly coated. You can see through the bottom of the bowl as well to ensure that you don't have the dried bits of the sugar which is not coated with the liquid glucose. Just go to the bottom. Just kind of kneading it so it just binds together. Okay, so once it's all mixed up, so obviously you need to wash up to get rid of or clean up your hands which is just sticking to the liquid glucose and the sugar, but I'm just trying to remove excess so I can just save as much and not just leave it in my fingers to wash it out. Okay, so that's how it's going to look at this stage. Now let me just have my hands washed and I will show you what is the next step going to be. So now I've just cleaned up my hands and what I have here is 2 silicone mats. You could use one. Why I have two? I have an 8-inch cake that's covered in fondant around which I'm going to use this technique. So depending on the size of the cake, we just have to know what is the strip of this sheet that we're just going to roll it out. I also have a rolling pin here. So I'm just going to divide this sugar between both the sheets. Okay, so it's not going to be like really very sticky anymore. Okay, now I'm just going to start rolling it with the rolling pin. So you can see the rolling pin is just going on smooth without sticking. They just want to make it even, not too thick, not too thin. So you can see the liquid glucose is that binder, but I also just want to pack it as closely as possible together, because as you're rolling it is just going to expand like that. You don't want to just leave it out with this kind of broken texture seam, because it could just lead to breaking it as you're wrapping it around the cake. Okay, so just pack it tightly and make sure on one side it's just leveled up already, but obviously you just want it to be smooth. You just want the surface to be like kind of flat. We could cut the excess out before we are just attaching it onto the cake, but just making sure it is like as neat as possible. Okay, so this one sheet is done. You can see it just even comes out of the silicone mat, but it just needs time to dry. Okay, so I'm just pushing them together. If you can see, the action that I'm doing is just pushing it together, so that way I'm just closely packing the sugar. Okay, so this one sheet is done. I'm also just going to level up. So this side I'll just use to align with the bottom of the cake. Now on to the next one. Also, I'm not working in a very hot place, so it's just not going to melt, and it is not also humid. Why? Because it is a hot place, it's Chennai, right? But then I work in AC to just avoid any kind of hiccup that comes with extreme heat or humidity. So if you think at this stage, if it sticks and it doesn't just match with the texture I have right now on the mat, then maybe you could just consider working in a AC room. Only if it just does not match this stage. Okay, so on this side I'm just leveling it up. Maybe I just expand a bit on this side. So as you're rolling, it is just going to open out and place themselves a little far away. So again, just push them together lengthwise and then in the height as well. So all this is just happening without any time delay. There was no resting time. So you can see it is just comfortably moving down out there, but then they will break because they are not set yet. So we're just going to pack it tightly, and then I'm just going to allow it to set here after this stage for about an hour in room temperature. My room temperature is going to be in AC. So if you have a hot room, and maybe also if it is like a humid room, obviously sugar is just going to start melting and become sticky. So if you think that it is sticky and not behaving like the way it is here, you just need to keep this right under AC. Okay, so now that is how it is looking. I just want to show on the other side. Okay, so the sheet looks like this, but it just needs resting time. Okay, so let me just put it out here for about an hour, and then I will just get back to show how it looks, and then we are just going to also transfer this on the cake. So it's like such a easy technique, but we just need to know what we really need to do if in case it just gets over sticky, and then what is the quantity of the sugar to the liquid glucose, and we just can put together like a really very sparkly technique on the cake. I'll get back after an hour to show you what we can really do with this to put it on the cake. So it's been an hour now, so and the sugar sheet has been drying. It just has set a little bit more, so just moving and then changing its shape and all is kind of become a little bit firmer. Okay, so as you can see here, but then it's not like very brittle. So this is the stage I feel is like quite good to go on the cake. Now I have a dummy that's covered with a teal colored fondant. Anyway, now this is going to go on top of it. I didn't want to do it directly on a dummy, so it's covered with fondant. Now if it is on a cake, now if you're going to put this, now if the entire cake is just going to be covered, and if all your tiers are going to be buttercream or ganache dark or white, then they can just have to be frosted basically. I mean, you don't want to do it like on a crumb coated cake. Frost them like how you would do to any other cake, and then because this needs some part of this frosting on the outside to stick, and you don't want to put it over like a dry crumb coated cake. Okay, but on fondant obviously, though there is fondant on the outside, we want some medium so that will stick the sugar sheet onto the cake. Now for which I just have some white chocolate microwaved. Now I use compound because these are just some simple quick melting the chocolate and then allowing it to set. You don't have to worry about tempering the chocolate for works like this. And I also want to check the edges here because that will just have two sheets going one next to the other, right? So I just want this one seems quite fine. On this I just want it to be cut out, so I'm just using a pizza cutter to just make it straight. Okay, so this is the extra that I'm just going to remove it out. Similarly, I don't want to waste up so much. If there is any overlap, then I could cut it after placing one sheet and then checking how much of the second sheet I need, or if maybe I just do have a gap. All that we could just avoid instead of just having surprises to go on the cake. We could just measure how much of the height I would need, and then how much of the circumference of the cake also I would need. Okay, so let me just go with one sheet. So now I'm just going to take the sheet. So the white chocolate is here, it's quite firm and it will also bend around. So I'm just going to wrap it around, press it well, and make sure the white chocolate helps stick the sheet on the cake. Now if I don't want this extra hanging the height of the sugar sheet, I could have measured it before and cut it to the exact height of the cake. But sometimes it is good to have that extra hanging there, the extra height of the sugar sheet. So you could just go around and then paint some gold or any metallic color on the top. Okay. So now I'm just going to use this side, which is like quite straight. Now if in case it is not straight enough, then again what you could do, because I just made sure it is straight before allowing it to sit, and in case you find that there is uneven side that has to go to the bottom, then you can use the pizza cutter and then cut out the base and then make it straight. Again here, just brushed the white chocolate onto the sheet. So I'm just lifting it up. So I'm just going to join up on one end. Don't want to have gap on both the sides. There is a little bit of gap. I'm just going to press it properly, allowing the time for the white chocolate to stick well on the cake. So you want to cover this up. We could use the extras. Just make sure you have a continuation there. Obviously this also just needs to be covered. That can still be the back of the cake, but you just don't want to. If you have to cover, just cover it up fully with the bits and pieces that you have cut. That you will still have not this joint, but then this will be the front of the cake, or this could be the front of the cake depending on how this is just turned out. Okay, you can make some connections here with some smaller bits if you choose to try and avoid the bigger gaps here. Obviously you could use white chocolate that was melted. So you have a proper connection. You just don't want to make these two little strips that we have made instead of just one whole thing, to practically show that hey, I have two different strips and it is not an entire one single cover all around. So you can just use the smaller bits to cover up so it all looks neat at the end. So once the chocolate just sets, it is just going to be in one piece. Okay, so now you can see we have the beautiful sparkling sugar sheet made and then decorated out, covering a cake. Like I said, you can use it on any medium, but then if you're using it on whipped cream, you just have to be sure that, because this is going to be quite heavy, it can be on the bottom tier of the cake, and you can decide what you can do to the rest of the tiers if you have to work putting it together. I'll see what I'm going to do to use this as one of the tier and then come up with another composition of a wedding cake using this technique. But this one is to show you in very detailed but very easy steps of how to use just two ingredients, and we have put together a beautiful technique of sugar sheet on a cake. Catch you up in another technique very soon.